I do want to welcome each of you, whether you're a newcomer visiting with us for the first time or whether you're a longtime attendee, as I see that many of you are. I recognize seeing you here before. I am personally so proud to be associated with the group that sponsors these events. Friends of the Tulsa City County Library is offering so many wonderful things for the community to enjoy, and it's a joy to be a part of that. If you're not already a member, if you think that you might like to be a part of offering those kinds of activities for our community, these types of programs, then there is on the back table an application form that you can join the Friends group. Also, I noticed on that table there is a submission form if you want to take part in the creative writing contest for adults. So those are both back there and available to you, and feel free to pick either of those up. I think in Tulsa, we're fortunate to have so many people who are well-traveled and who are willing to share with us their anecdotes, their adventures, as they visited places as far-flung as we've seen this season, as the Gettysburg Battlefield in Pennsylvania to the hiking trails of New Zealand. And every opportunity to hear where someone else has traveled is perhaps an inspiration to you to visit that place too. Or if you're not able to, it's a good way for you to enjoy somewhere that you won't be able to visit. If you pick up one of these on the back table, you'll see that next week we're going to be exploring the Dalmatian coast of Croatia on a yacht. And the week after that, on February 28th, we'll be trekking on a truck through the African countries of Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia, I believe was the other one. So really diverse offerings and where we might visit through the Travels with Tulsans program, and hope that you're enjoying all of that as it unravels this season. Today, you're in for a treat as longtime Tulsan Nancy Bizjack takes us bicycling in Spain. And when she comes up here, you might notice that she wore, especially for us today, some of the biking attire that she purchased in Spain, and she can show you a little bit about that. If you have ever sat at a performance at the Tulsa Performing Arts Center and browsed through one of these, an intermission magazine, your life has already interconnected with Nancy's life. Nancy Bizjack is retired from the Tulsa Performing Arts Center, where she served as assistant editor and then editor-in-chief of the Intermission magazine for 17 years. She is currently on the boards of the Tulsa Town Hall and of Global Gardens, and she delivers Meals on Wheels once a week. Nancy and her husband, Paul, don't consider themselves to be serious cyclists, but they do like to take bike rides whenever and wherever they go on vacation. So far, they've cycled in 17 states, including Alaska and Hawaii, and in 3 foreign countries. Nancy says, "Whenever I hop on a bike, I feel like a kid again." Now relax and enjoy Nancy's program, Beyond Barcelona, biking the Costa Brava region of Spain.
Thank you, Carol. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. To me, there's nothing more romantic than taking a trip with your sweetheart. So I'm going to tell you about a vacation I took a few years ago with my husband, Paul, who's still my sweetheart after 43 years of marriage. How many of you know how to ride a bike? Yeah, pretty much everybody. And like me, most of you probably learned how to master that skill when you were about 5 or 6 years old. And I bet you still know how. Whether you do it or not, you still know how. Here's a photo of me and my 2 sisters with our bikes when we were kids. I'm the one in the middle. I've ridden bikes with varying frequency throughout the years since then. Like Carol said, Paul and I like to rent bikes wherever we go. As a result, we've ridden bikes in Golden Gate Park on the West Coast, Central Park on the East Coast, up north on Mackinac Island in Michigan, and down south near Lake Pontchartrain in Louisiana. We've cycled to Niagara Falls in Canada, not from here. I mean, we just up there, short ride, and to a glacier in Alaska. And we ride a lot here at home. As you probably know, Tulsa has a wonderful trail system. We can ride our bikes from our home near 96th and Yale all the way to Brookside, the Gathering Place, Cherry Street, or even downtown via bike trails. We usually only get as far as Brookside though, because we like to stop and eat breakfast or have lunch. And then we decide to go back home after that. This is a photo of us, not in Tulsa, but that's on the Katy Trail in Missouri, which is another favorite place we like to ride. It follows the path of an old MKT railroad, which ran along the Missouri River. So there's a lot of Lewis and Clark and Daniel Boone history there too, which I love. And best of all, it's very flat. Anyway, at some point, 2007 to be exact, Paul and I decided it might be fun to go on an organized group bike tour. Our first trip was to Maine with an outfit called VBT. We enjoyed the experience so much, we later took VBT trips to California, Spain, and Vermont. Today, I'm going to tell you about our trip to Spain with VBT in the summer of 2018. The tour at that time was called Cycling Dali's Landscapes, which conjured up surreal images, for me at least, of riding bikes past melting clocks draped over dead trees. What it meant, of course, was that we would be riding through Catalonia, where the famous artist Salvador Dali was born and lived and worked for much of his life. It's in the northeast corner of Spain near France and includes the city of Barcelona, which is where we began our journey. We arrived in Barcelona and checked into our hotel located on La Rambla, which is a wide pedestrian street lined with trees and shops, sort of a promenade. After dragging our jet-lagged selves along La Rambla for a while, we had a late lunch of sangria and seafood. That's my husband there. Later, probably after a nap, we wandered around the Gothic neighborhood, El Gothique. There was a crowd in the plaza in front of the cathedral, and we joined them to watch some street performers. We had dinner at Els Quatre Gats, the Four Cats. We were drawn to the restaurant, which opened in 1897, by the image of two men on a tandem bicycle on the sign outside. We also like the fact that Picasso used to eat here, and he created the art for the menu cover, which you can see in the lower right corner. More recently, a scene from the movie Vicky Cristina Barcelona was filmed there. So that was kind of cool. The next day, we toured the famous Sagrada Familia, designed by Antoni Gaudí. Ground was broken for the basilica in 1882, and it's been under construction ever since. When we were there, it was projected to be finished in 2026, 100 years after Gaudí's death. But the pandemic slowed things down, and the projected completion date is now 2040. Will it ever be finished? Who knows? I hope they keep working on it. Yeah, it looks like a giant sandcastle, don't you think? It's very cool. Here are some interior shots, and they really don't do it justice. It's immense and absolutely gorgeous. Afterwards, we went to Park Güell, another unique creation from the whimsical mind of Gaudí. There's sort of a Dr. Seuss look to most of his buildings, I think. Other Gaudí design structures in Barcelona include Casa Mila and Casa Batlló. In case you're wondering, no, we didn't ride bikes in Barcelona. It's very crowded. We arrived there a few days early so we could experience the city, which we'd never seen before, and recover from jet lag before the biking began. But on our third day in Spain, we met our bike group at the hotel and took a bus to the medieval town of Girona, about an hour northeast of Barcelona. That's me on a bridge designed by Gustave Eiffel over the Riu Onyar. And yes, that Eiffel, the one that does the Eiffel Tower guy. Catalonia has been seeking independence from Spain for many years. When we were there, the buildings were festooned with yellow ribbons to promote that cause. That night, we had dinner at an outdoor cafe at the halfway point of a long flight of steps, which you'll see in the next slide. The next day, we went on a walking tour of Girona. If you watched Game of Thrones, you might recognize parts of Girona as the city of Bravos in season 6. I've been told that this cathedral on the right was where Jaime Lannister had a showdown with the High Sparrow. I didn't watch the show, so I have no idea what any of that means, but maybe you do. I know it was very popular. At this point, I must have had to recharge my phone or something because I have no more pictures of that day. But according to my notes, we got fitted for our bikes finally, took a practice ride around a nearby lake, and had a picnic lunch. On previous VBT trips, I had used a regular bicycle, but on this one, I asked for an e-bike. And I was glad I did because many of the medieval villages we rode to were at the tops of hills. Also, my husband is a stronger cyclist than I am. So with the e-bike, I no longer felt like I was holding him back. He actually had a hard time keeping up with me when we were going up hills in Spain, which we both thought was funny. Well, I did anyway. Another upgrade that everyone got was the navigation app Ride with GPS, which was pre-programmed with oral instructions telling us when to turn, when to stop, etc. Because you don't always, sometimes you're riding with the group and sometimes you're kind of, some people go faster than others. Some people want to stop and take pictures every, mile or so. So that was great because before they had just given us, on other trips, they just had these written instructions there on your bike. And, you can imagine trying to read that and keep your eye on, not have a wreck. So the Ride with GPS, it's like, it's like what you probably use on your phone or in your car. It's great. Later that day, we had a welcome reception and dinner with our group at the hotel. The next day, we took a short bus ride to Púbol Castle, which was built in 1420. Salvador Dali bought the castle for his wife and muse, Gala, and decorated it with his art, including this long-legged elephant sculpture in the garden, which was really cool. And the elephants on my shirt. Yeah. Gala spent time in her castle every summer throughout the 1970s. You can see that red couch there. It has a real 70s vibe to it, I think. And it truly was her castle. If Salvador wished to visit her there, he had to get advance permission from her in writing. Didn't he bought her the castle, but it was her castle. So with your own castle and that kind of power, you might as well have a throne, right? So on the left, you'll see the throne, and then on the wall next to it, if you'll notice, it looks like there's a door, but it's actually a trompe l'oeil painting. Very realistic. And the photo on the right is the ceiling of Gala's throne room. Bef- yeah, there she is. I don't know what else she did, but before Gala married Dali, she was married to the French poet Paul Eluard, and she was his muse as well as Dali's and other writers and artists, including Max Ernst. Nice work if you can get it, right? She was married to Dali from 1934 until her death in 1982, and she is buried at Pujol Castle. After touring Gala's castle, we hopped on our bikes and rode to Monel's, a tiny medieval town of about 200 people. We ate lunch there under those arches. It was very charming. After lunch, we rode to Castel d'Empordà, where we would be staying for the next 2 nights. The earliest document in which this castle is mentioned dates back to 1301. Before he bought Pujol Castle for his wife, Dali had tried to buy this place, paying for it with his art, but the owner preferred cash. So I don't know which would have been the better deal, maybe the art. But after being abandoned for almost 20 years, it was restored and opened in 2001 as the lovely hotel that it is today. That night, we had dinner by the pool with our group. The guy in the plaid shirt talking to my husband is Martin, one of our 2 tour guides. The guides on these tours are always knowledgeable and helpful, and in this case, also very attractive. Here's Martin the next morning going over the day's route with us. One of the nice things about these tours is that while one guide cycles with us, the other one drives a van that you can call to pick you up if you get tired or need anything. The van driver also rides ahead and sets up snack and water stops for everyone. Our group, which numbered around 20, had most likely stopped for a snack when this photo was taken. In the photo above it, you can see what I mean about those hill towns. I believe that is Pals, where we stopped for lunch. And speaking of snack and water breaks. One of my favorite memories was later that afternoon when my husband and I separated from the group at the next town, Paratalata, and found a quaint bar where we had a refreshing Coke in its secluded courtyard. It was just a beautiful blue sky day, and that Coke was the best thing I'd ever tasted. It was very refreshing. Then we rode back to our castle. I love saying that. And here are some magnificent views of the surrounding countryside from the castle's tower. This was in June, and it was warm, but I don't remember it being like terribly hot. It was warm, but yeah, it was comfortable. Okay. The next morning, our other guide, Andrea, led the daily briefing, telling us about the apple orchard we would visit that day. And here we are, tasting many varieties of cider made from the local fruit. Then we rode on to an old farmhouse where the owners, a couple named Mark and Eva, were preparing lunch for us. But first, we practiced drinking sangria from a communal vessel. You can tell this was before the pandemic. We thought nothing of course, we weren't trying not to touch our mouths to it, but it was pretty entertaining and kind of messy. Our hosts were smart to have us do that part outside. Inside, Mark and Eva had set a long table for us in a cave-like room, which created a cozy atmosphere. We enjoyed a delicious meal of rice with vegetables from their garden. After lunch, we pedaled on to our next accommodation. I didn't think anything could be better than the Castel d'Empordà. But when we arrived at the Mediterranean coast and saw Hostal Empuries near La Scala, I could see that I was wrong. This is the view from the hotel. Lovely, isn't it? The rocky shoreline is what inspired the name Costa Brava, which means wild or rough coast. The hotel itself, however, was far from rough. Here are some interior shots. That night, we walked to the small village of Sant Martí d'Empúries, which was first settled by the Greeks in the 6th century BC. We enjoyed a delicious seafood dinner and music at an outdoor cafe. The next day, there was a bus ride north to Cantelops to ride in that area. My husband went, along with everyone else, but I decided to take a rest day. You can do that on these trips. You know, as they always say, it's your vacation. So, you know, within reason, you do what you want. So I strolled back to Sant Martí, took some pictures, did a little day drinking, and had a lovely seafood salad. At the same place where we'd been the night before. Then I went back to the hotel, took some more photos, sat on the beach and read. It was very relaxing. That night, we taxied into La Scala for dinner with 2 other couples and shared our experiences. Some of the women wished that they'd stayed back and had a rest day like I did. But I'm sure they had a good time too. The next day, we took a boat ride down the coast of the Mediterranean for an hour or so. Then we got off, grabbed our bikes, and rode to Torroella de Montgrí, where we ate lunch. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing all these words right, but anyway. After lunch, we rode back to our hotel, stopping to celebrate the end of our ride at this monument to the Olympic flame, commemorating the 1992 Summer Olympics in Barcelona. My excuse for not lifting my bike was that the e-bikes are a little bit heavier. Not that I would have picked it up anyway, but it felt good to, you know, say we've done it. Later that afternoon, we toured the ruins of Empuries, a city that was founded by Greek colonists in 550 BC and later occupied by the Romans. The ruins were a short walk from our hotel, which was originally built as lodging for the archaeologists who began excavating the ruins in 1908. We had a bittersweet farewell dinner that night at the hotel. These folks had been like our best friends for the past week. As you can see, they were mostly couples around our age, people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. We've also been on bike tours where there were people in their 40s and even 80s. And it's not always just couples. There are usually a few singles or 2 friends traveling together. And we all mix and mingle and, you know, get along fine together. The next day, we took a bus to Figueres to tour the Dali Museum there in the artist's hometown. Dali created the museum beginning in the 1960s, saying that he wanted people who visited to, quote, leave with the sensation of having had a theatrical dream. Sounds very Dali, right? And I would say he succeeded. It was a surreal experience. The museum, in addition to being a work of art itself, houses the largest and most diverse display of Dali's works, many from his personal collection. My favorite title, if not my favorite work, is the one on the left, Soft Self-Portrait with Grilled Bacon. But as you can see, the artist was also capable of painting more mainstream representational art, such as this one of Gala. Dali, who died in 1989, is buried there at the museum. From Figueres, we returned to Barcelona for one more night before flying back to Tulsa. We went to this tiny tapas bar. There was a crowd outside waiting for it to open. And when it did, we all rushed in. We could hardly find a place to sit. There were so many people. And then, before we knew it, our adventure was over and we were back in Tulsa. This is our granddaughter wearing the little flamenco dress we bought her in Spain. I hope I've made this type of travel look like fun, because it really is. But like anything, it has advantages and disadvantages. Under disadvantages, you don't cover as much territory, obviously, as you would on a bus or train tour. You need a certain level of fitness to be able to ride 15 to 30 miles a day over 2 to 4 hours. And there's always a slight risk of injury, with anything, but maybe a little more when you're riding bikes. Although nothing serious has happened to anyone on any of the trips we've taken. The advantages are you get excellent exercise, even on an e-bike. The company provides the bicycles, plans the routes, books the hotel, hauls your luggage. So that's really nice. Some meals and snacks are included. You get to enjoy the camaraderie with the other cyclists, and you get to see things slowly and up close. Are there any questions?
Can you show the map again?
Okay, let's see. I guess I just have to go back. Is there a quick way to do this, Tara, or just, okay.
Did it ever rain?
Well, if you notice, like in one of those first pictures where we, after we went to Gala's castle and then we rode to Monell's, it was a little rainy. Oh, I went all the way back. There it is. But it didn't rain much.
So how many miles total did you ride? Did you keep track of
Oh, I don't know, but
the fish?
yeah, well, probably at least 15 miles a day, but maybe more.
So the red line is the bike route, it says.
Yes.
Okay.
And the dotted line is like a van, yeah. And then there was that little part where we took the boat ride in the Mediterranean. This was, I think, 5 days. You guys are asking good questions. I just forget the answers. Yeah. And like on most days, there'd be like, you could ride just like the basic route, or if you wanted to ride more, they would give you another little route to ride, or if you wanted to, take a short route. So you have options.
Where is the place you ride the bicycle you said?
Yes, the Katy Trail in Missouri. Yeah, it goes almost all the way across the state of Missouri, and like when I say we're not like hardcore riders, I mean, yeah, we're not like the people that ride it in one day or ride it even in 2 or 3 days, camping along the way. No, no. We get a hotel or bed and breakfast or something, and we'll just like ride out as far as we want to go and ride back. The next day we ride out the other way and go back. Then we might go on down the road to another place and do the same thing. So
Where's the closest jumping off place? For that?
it would be Clinton, Missouri. It goes, yeah, like from Clinton, it goes up to Sedalia, Boonville, goes near Columbia, Jefferson City, all the way to St. Charles, which is where Lewis and Clark began their journey. Yeah. My family says I'm obsessed with the Katy Trail, so maybe I am. But it's a nice, close by place to ride. Any other questions? No, not another bike trip. Our next trip is going to be a Mediterranean cruise. And I don't think we'll be riding bikes, but knowing my husband, he'll find a way to get a bike in there. Oh, VBT?
Yeah, so I wanted to do that. I could Google
VBT, VBT stands for, I think it started out as Vermont Bicycle Tours, but they go all over the place now. So VBT, yeah. I think it's one of the kind of, we feel like it's a good value. It's kind of one of the like mid-price ones. There are some called Backwoods and Butterfield and something or other. And those are like the top notch ones. In VBT, I mean, we stayed at really nice places and we loved it. We just never thought about even looking at another one because we liked it and think it's a good value. And then there are others that are, less expensive where, you stay at, more casual places, I guess. But.
At the Dali Museum, there was a polka dot tower with eggs on it.
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
That was part of the museum.
Well, what were those just for decoration, egg shapes?
Yeah, you'd have to ask Dali. No, he was just, yeah, he was very whimsical artist that just, yeah. Why not put a piece of bacon on your self-portrait? Yeah. Maybe he really liked bacon. I don't know. Does anybody have any questions about the e-bikes? Okay. Well, it has an electric motor, but it's really a better description is pedal assist because you do have to pedal and you have gears like a regular bike, but you just have this extra little thing that most of the time you keep it kind of on low, but when you're going up a hill, you can crank it up a little bit and it's like you've got this invisible hand just pushing you up there. So it's really great. Yeah.
On those long rides like that, how does that work? Are you charging it as you pedal or you just have so much power for the day on the bike?
That's a good question because I don't know because the tour takes care of all that. You ride your bike and then you just hand it off to them, So I think it might be a little of both, but I'm pretty sure they probably had to charge them. Yeah, as well.
So
yeah.
That's interesting. So you don't have to worry about bike maintenance. The tour company does it. Like if you get a flat tire, chain comes off, they handle all that.
Yeah.
Be an expert on fixing it.
Yeah. And they provide the bikes and you have different options, some people like the e-bikes, some people prefer regulars. And a few people I think have brought their own bike, if you're real, attached to your own bike, I think you can do that, but why? They have really good bikes. Were you asking about if you get an e-bike in town? Yeah, I think those, and I think those ones out that you can rent out on river parks I think those are too. solar powered or something, I think. Yeah.
Because it's called a Peloton. It sounded like you said you had a motor you could turn off and on.
Okay. Yeah. Those are stationary bikes though, right? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think they're wonderful. It's lets you keep on doing it as long, longer.
What, this company, VBT, what other non-United States sites do they have available for biking trips?
Oh, phew, I don't know. Well, I know they have at least one in Canada that we were going to go on, and it was like the Gulf Islands, up near Vancouver. Yeah, we were going to do that, and then the pandemic, so they kept like postponing. And finally, we just, kind of gave up and did their Vermont tour in 2021, which that was nice. Yeah. I think probably, oh God, lots of other countries. They've really expanded. I mean, I think there's probably France, Portugal, South America, some places, I don't know, but you can go on their website and check it out. Anything else? Well, thank you all so much for coming out and being interested in seeing my vacation pictures.